Apple, just try again. Hello and welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. I'm your host, the Nerd Man, and today we're talking Wonder Woman 2017 with another huge fan of the film, Mads MamaBear. You want to say hello?
Hello there.
Good. We'll talk about your channel and everything and what you do on your channel a bit later. I came up with this idea because I realized since I'd watched the Wonder Woman film, I'd never actually fully done a video or anything just explaining exactly why. I didn't even really do a proper review of the film at the time. I think I put on it wasn't a very good review, but it was just me kind of talking about it's a great movie, really fun and stuff like that, but I never really unpacked why I actually like the movie. So by the way, just to tell you, this video is not me trying to convince anybody that Wonder Woman is a great movie. It's just two people who enjoy the movie having a conversation about why they enjoy the movie. So it's, if you don't think it's great, that's fine. I'm happy with that. But I certainly enjoy it, and I wanted to kind of have some kind of conversation as to why. I was hoping by talking to you, it would actually bring up some of the things of why I enjoy the movie as well. Maybe things I haven't even thought of. As to why I just feel like, especially from the first time watching it, why I enjoyed it so much. There was one more thing I was going to say. That was it. So, let me start off by, we can talk about when you first saw it and how you felt about the movie when you first saw it.
Well, first saw it, that's one of the few I actually did watch in the theater. I'll admit, a lot of my movie watching is more of as Demogeny puts it, sailing the blue seas. I'll own that. But that was one I was super excited to watch, so I actually did go see that in the theater.
Can I ask a question? Did you enjoy the former DCEU movies?
Well, yeah, actually. With the exception of, if you go all the way back, like Supergirl, that one was just...
Oh, no, I mean the DCE,
the modern ones, yeah, DCEU, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah? Okay, so you liked Man of Steel?
Yes.
Okay, and then you liked BVS as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like them equally? Some more than the others? And where would you have ranked Wonder Woman once you saw it in those?
Once I saw it, yeah, that one definitely went above BVS and Man of Steel for me, because Wonder Woman is a soft spot for me, because did grow up on her, and she was one of my growing up idols. Hey, Blue Arrow. But okay. For me, it takes a lot for any comic book movie to really piss me off. I generally try to see the good in the movies.
Yeah. So you like really the MCU movies as well?
There's really only one that has pissed me off to the point where I refuse to watch it or even name it by name 90% of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you wanna give us a clue?
That's the third X-Men movie, The Last Stand, and I will own.
Oh, okay.
That one.
Really?
That one, it still to this day it still rages me out.
Really? I felt like that. About how they handled Phoenix.
Yeah.
I felt like that about the beginning X-Men movies. I was seriously saddened by that whole X-Men series. I didn't know why everyone was over the moon about it, because I just was like, how could you do that to Rogue? Rogue was my favorite X-Men character.
I know. I was angry about Rogue from the start too.
Yeah,
So
I was
she's
super.
strong character, and they did
They
that to her.
just, yeah, she always was like this fun, like kind of. She had a tragic side to her, but she didn't dwell in tragedy,
Hmm.
which is what I like. Like she had this tragic upbringing, but she was this kind of she always had this kind of moxie to her,
Yeah,
where she was fun and witty and, you know, a little bit flirtatious, but like, you know, at the
she was
same
never the
time
damsel in
bubbly,
distress.
like, yeah, like a bubbly personality. And I remember, I think it was from the first line that it's one of the first lines that she has in the X-Men animated series, which I was like, you know, in love with her after that. What was it? She said something about Storm. I've got to find that line one day. I'd like and
Yeah.
tell and share that with you because it's just such a great line to introduce a character.
In the 90s series,
And
some great ones.
then they messed up Gambit as well.
Yeah.
And because I was like, oh, they're saving Gambit for the second movie, and I watched. I because you know back then you didn't have the internet, and you know you didn't like research the movies that as much. You just went in kind of almost blind, just from like I don't even think I'd seen the trailer for X-Men 2 when I went to
I
see the movie. I just
Yeah,
went in
I'm not sure if I would
blind.
either.
I went in like,
I saw the promo photos,
mm,
because they had made it in the magazines,
yeah.
but that was pretty much it. And I was skeptical with Mystique the most when it came to
Mm.
that.
Yeah, so you're right. You'd see the magazines, or you'd watch. You might catch a trailer if you'd
Mhm.
watched something in the cinema, and the trailer might come before. But like apart from that, you didn't like, you know, necessarily see the trailers to these movies, you know, before going to see them. So I went in blind to the X-Men, you know, to just thinking, of course they're gonna put Gambit in now, you know. And when Gambit wasn't in the movie, I was just like, I'm done. I'm like literally done with this. And then you know, Rogue was still the same. It was just not for me. But yeah, I can see why you were pissed off by X-Men 3, but my feeling for that was just you
You were
know,
already checked out by that
I
point.
was already checked out. I didn't check in until X-Men First Class. That one I thought was really good. But after that, I've not really been like that huge a fan of it. But anyway, back to the point at hand. This is going to be meandering, guys, because
Sorry about that.
we're like big fans of this stuff. Yeah. So when you went to first, you went to first see it. You watched. You were kind of excited about it because you were a fan of the Linda Carter show.
Oh yeah, I even went with, you know, in my Wonder Woman shirt. So
Yeah.
naturally,
Right.
when you go, you can dress up for it. But yeah, I was super excited for it, and
Yeah.
honestly, it for me it did not disappoint.
Mm.
It was held very close to the Wonder Woman Origins movie that came out. God, what was it? 2009, I think.
2009 for the
Yeah.
animated one,
Mhm.
which was the first time I liked Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Was that animated movie?
It held pretty close to that, and I did like that. I mean, the whole battle with Ares, that's a necessary talking point when
Mm.
it comes to her.
Right, and I think the animated film did. I thought that was really good, but it was like kind of like a little bit of a different version of her as well.
Mhm.
She comes into the modern day. She's a little bit more, I would say, radical feminist almost, right? Like she's, you know, that she's really hardcore, kind of like, you know, the Amazons really don't like men in
Yeah,
that. Whereas like with the 2017 film, it was more
they dialed it down a bit.
they dialed that whole element down a lot. So the misandry of that film wasn't like quite as high. Like it was more about like the Amazons were here to save mankind, and that mankind were virtuous until they were corrupted by Ares. So, and I like that kind of more, to be honest, than the animated film, because it made the Amazons and Wonder Woman more noble, and it made her much more like the comics that I'd read. Like, because so for me, I'd watched the 2009 animated film, and then I was like, oh, I want to read like Wonder Woman comics, because I was like, why have I never known Wonder Woman was this cool? Like, I've always been a fan of Superman and Batman, and I've always, like, I just ignored Wonder Woman comics or Wonder Woman stuff. And then I was like, that's her origin? She fights Ares and like, Greek mythological creatures and shit. And she's like from an island of, like a parrot. I just thought this is as good an origin as Batman or Superman. I loved her origin. It was epic and mythological, and she had great villains. And I was just like, what is wrong with why do people not like underrate Wonder Woman so much? And so then I went to read the comics, and I found out like she's much more of in the comics than in that film. She's much more of an aspirational hero. She's not as flawed as she is in that film. She's much more hopeful and an inspiration in the in the DC universe. And she's kind of, I mean, she's a lot of people say she's the female Superman, but she isn't really. There's a lot of differences there, like subtle differences. But the thing that they do share in common is that they're these aspirational heroes, these heroes that people kind of look up to in the DC universe, and they're there to kind of like inspire people to, see the best in people or see hope in the world. So I'm glad the 2017 movie went that route, where like she was, she's naive, but she's very, very, hopeful and inspirational as a character as well.
Yeah. I'm sorry about the neighbor dog.
No, it's all right. Don't worry. I like dogs.
Oh, so do I.
So, yeah, I mean, so what was it specifically? I mean, let's break down like what specifically we kind of enjoyed about the film. You could tell me like, first.
Initially, yes. Seeing the beginnings of her growing up on Themyscira. The whole, sneaking into the training. I loved seeing that. Just getting the whole look of it, where it was like a similar introduction as it was with Thor. Not to the same level as we got to see with Aquaman, but because
that's interesting
comparison.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Thor and Aquaman. Yeah, I want you to go on, finish what you were saying, and then I'll respond to the thing about Thor.
And seeing her biggest inspiration was this one particular, which is where she got the crown from, which is a bit of a deviant from the whole concept, but I do like that her tiara is an honor to one of the toughest warriors there, and not just something that she inherited as a birthright.
Yeah, I love that. I love that element. That's where like she got her tiara from Antiope. I thought that was fantastic. Like the greatest warrior. Yeah, that made. I like when they put those kind of elements in that, like these origin movies, where they take something that's iconic from the character and give, like some kind of clever way, or some way in which they got that, they received it, where it wasn't just like, oh, it's just part of the uniform. It's like it has some extra kind of meaning to it now.
Yeah, like in Batman Begins, where the origin of the bat ears. That's actually one of my favorite scenes from that movie.
There's an origin to the bat ears
Yes, in Batman
what does he
Begins.
say?
It's because he's using technology to hear great distances, and it's got this antenna, so that's why he wound up doing the bat ears on the suit. And
Really?
yeah, it's
I've watched that movie like
it's
every year, and I don't remember
it's like
that.
it's like a 10-second scene, but for me, I love it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Batman Begins does that a lot, and I'm going to talk about Batman Begins when it comes to this, because I think Wonder Woman and Shazam are more heirs to Batman Begins style of storytelling than even Man of Steel is. But what I was going to say about the Thor comparison is a lot of people compare this movie to Thor and Captain America, and they say it's kind of like a ripoff of those movies. And I wanted to know what you thought of that, because I have my own opinion on that.
I've had this conversation many times, especially when they did the whole Lady Thor story arc. I had that conversation with a number of people because I was not a fan of Lady Thor. But I see where people make the comparison, because they both have grounding in a familiar mythology that we know from our reality.
Yeah.
Thor being an actual Norse god for us, and her being an Amazon, which is based with the Greek mythology. So I see where the whole concept, and she is a demigod.
Yeah.
And I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay. I absolutely 100% reject this comparison. I really do. I think so. The idea is that because if you read it just on the surface, there's some similarities, right? But literally, it's only a surface reading of the films. And I'm not saying that this is nothing against Thor or Captain America. I'm just saying the films are completely different. Mm-hmm. So Thor, in his story, is from a kind of militant, almost kind of military style nation that is constantly at war, right? Mm-hmm. The whole point of Wonder Woman is it's the exact opposite of that. That the Amazons are, essentially an isolated nation that are, that have hidden away from man because the man's world is so corrupted, and they've been able to live in this idyllic, peaceful world, and they're scared of even entering into man's world again because they don't want to enter into that violence, right? And that philosophically plays into the story and how it shapes Wonder Woman's perception of the world. Thor comes into the world as a warrior, like seeking to, become a warrior again. He wants to get his position, regain his power, essentially, as a warrior. But to do that, he has to prove he's worthy or responsible or whatever. Whereas the Wonder Woman story is the classic story of an aspirational hero, right? Like, it's a hero that is naive, doesn't know their own power, but is gung-ho about doing good, doing the right thing. She wants to get out into even though, her mother and, other people are trying to protect her from the world, she wants to get out there and do good in it. And the reason she wants to do good in it is because of the ideology she's been fed in this peaceful society, right? Like, she's been fed this notion that, people are ultimately righteous, and that the Amazons are there, were almost, they were created, as such, to protect and to do, to inspire people to be that virtuous person. And she's really internalized that ideology, right, that her mother taught her. And now she goes out into the world and has to confront that her black and white morality you know, when it comes up to the actual world, isn't how would you say? Sorry, I've lost my train of thought now. But her black and white morality is a bit too simplistic for the actual world and for why, you know, man has all these conflicts, or humanity has all these conflicts. So it's that journey that she's going through that for me is very, very interesting. I'm not taking anything away from Thor at all, but that's a very, very different. That's a very, very different setup for what the Thor film is doing. This is an arrogant, you know, what you would call, I don't know the exact term for it, but like he's more of a hero, right? He's a hero that's learning to become a hero. She's a hero from the outset. What she's learning is that, you know, she has to learn to, I suppose, first of all, that, you know, to go beyond her naivety, right? Like what makes her think that, but then she's still got to regain, you know, faith that her worldview, while, you know, it was naive, still there was a lot of merit to it. Like she still sees the good in people. She still wants to inspire people to do, you know, like to be better, essentially, by the end of the film. But it's just like she has to go through a journey to be like, okay, it wasn't quite as simple as I thought it was, but you know, at the same time, you know, underlying what I want to do in the world, the good that I want to do, that is something that's worth pursuing. I like that. And also, okay, going to Captain America, and I'll finish after this. Going to Captain America, in the comparison they make with Captain America is, again, I think not quite right, because the war that Captain America is in when he goes to World War II is not what really World War II. It's another, you know, I suppose, conflict created by the MCU, right? Where it's like, I don't know, these guys with their futuristic weapons and laser guns, and it's what are they called again? The I always forget their name.
The Hydra?
The Hydra guys, right? Yeah. So nothing is mentioned about like Jews or the camps or anything like that. And I'm not saying that they should have done that, because you'd have to be very careful if you wanna you know, do a story like a Captain America story that literally is about him fighting the Nazis, to not trivialize the suffering that went on during that period by saying, "Oh, hey, here comes."
Sorry, X-Men handled that well. Beyond
X-Men handled it well.
Yeah, beyond that, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. From somebody whose grandparents lived in one of the occupied countries, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Right. So I think Marvel did the right thing by like sidestepping that, like, and making it Hydra and everything like that. But what it meant to me is that when he was being noble and doing all of his kind of inspirational stuff that, you know, Captain America does, because it wasn't the real conflict, it didn't have the emotional weight for me, right? It wasn't like, oh, you know, oh, wow, Captain America's really stopping the Nazis, or he's really doing, you know, impacting something that historically means something to me. Whereas with the Wonder Woman film, that was World War One, right? It wasn't like as graphic or as gruesome as World War One, but effectively she was in World War One. Like they took her from this fantasy, you know, island, you know, and took this fantasy character and plopped her into the real world and said, like, okay, how would Wonder Woman like have impacted this conflict, right? Like to some extent.
I see what you mean. It was a side that you could see actually happening, versus with the various technology, the weapons that they had in the Captain America movie. That really took it out from, I could see that actually happening.
Right, exactly. And then, so therefore, when she was doing all of those things in the conflict, when she was talking to the generals, and, you know, and and chastising them for seeing soldiers as disposable, or when she was crossing no man's land. All of those things she was doing just were that much more inspiring and meaningful to me, because it was like, oh, it felt like, I don't know how to say it. It's like, it makes a difference when it's the real world. I just think it really does. It's like, or at least a close kind of approximation of the real events. It just makes that little bit more difference, because you're just like, she's actually impacting something that happened, and that is tangible, that whereas Captain America, it felt to me like it was just a high fantasy, great, a great little adventure story, which was cool, but like not as connected to the real world as like Wonder Woman was. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell you why a couple of reasons why I like this movie. And hopefully it'll kind of instigate some conversation. One of the things I absolutely loved about Wonder Woman, and I think that this is not done enough, and it's one of the things that makes it different to me with female-led movies in general, action movies, I mean, is that Wonder Woman was good at being a hero because she was a woman, not in spite of being a woman.
Yes.
Right. So she was a very, very feminine character, and I absolutely love that. They didn't just make her this kind of, masculine warrior who was only feminine in gender as opposed to feminine in character. And I don't think we see that enough. Even in female heroines that I love, like the Terminator, Sarah Connor, right, or Alien, right? A lot of the feminine characteristics of those heroines are not kind of played up. It's more that they look boyish, they look masculine, they act masculine, and they're great characters, don't get me wrong, I'm nothing against them, but it was really, really refreshing to see a character who really just acted, and was presented in a very feminine way. She was doing little dress up things. She was, she was like being very kind of sympathetic or empathetic in a way a woman would be. Like when she was talking to Charlie, she was like, oh, if you leave, who will sing for us? Just little lines like that made her incredibly feminine, and I think that's part of what was so empowering about the movie, because in a way, with all the debates I've had recently, Wonder Woman is a very simplistic kind of story, like the Wonder Woman 2017. It's a very simplistic, straight up origin story. But it was so refreshing to place a woman at the center of that, and an actual woman, and it was just a different perspective on something we'd seen before that I think made a real difference to the quality of the story.
Agreed. And this is actually why I gravitated towards the more comic book superhero type storylines versus, like you said, Terminator and Alien and all of that, which, yes, are movies I grew up on and watched a lot of times. But when you get characters like Wonder Woman, like Catwoman, and a lot where they walk that line of being both tough but strong, that femme fatale thing, I love it.
Right. And good comparison with Catwoman. So carry on, and I'll say what I think of Catwoman, because Michelle Pfeiffer's brilliant as Catwoman, by the way.
She is. I love Catwoman pretty much any form. Started off with, again, the Batman TV series, that pure campy, absolutely delightful Adam West series. And I was skeptical about Michelle Pfeiffer when they announced it, because the thought of a blonde Catwoman was a little jarring for me. But she killed it, and I fell in love with that character as soon as she got on that outfit.
Yeah. Oh, she was brilliant. She was so. I mean, what was it? Yeah, there's so many scenes. I'm not good at always memorizing like the dialogue of the scenes, but when she's after she's thrown out of the building and like she becomes the Catwoman or whatever, and she first sees um Bruce Wayne and the other billionaire guy, Max Shrek.
Yep.
She goes in and kind of like confronts him again, and she's telling this story about some guy who had embarrassed her at school. And then she goes, but he's dead now, and it's just like little lines like that. She was absolutely brilliant. And you're right, she is another character who was incredibly like feminine, and she was good at what she does precisely because she's feminine. And I think that's why so many women kind of gravitated towards her as a character and that as a role. But I'll say the one thing that I even love about the Wonder Woman character from the comics and in this film is that she's incredibly feminine, but she never uses her sexuality as a way to gain advantage, right? So there's either the characters, like the feminine characters who the female characters who are pretty much like men and they're like tomboys, and that's why they're good at being action heroes. Or on the other side, there's like femme fatales who exude sexuality and use their sensuality and feminine wiles to be able to get advantage over men. Wonder Woman is neither of those, which is a really interesting thing.
Yeah, she's neither in both at the same time, and that's what makes her such a unique character.
Right. And I've loved that about her. And it kind of, I have to say, I know you like Wonder Woman 1984, but that annoyed the shit out of me.
It annoyed a lot of people.
In Wonder Woman 1984 was when she I didn't like the way she was behaving towards men in general in that film. Like, she was just like, leave me alone, get away from me. And that was just like, that's not Wonder Woman. That's not how Wonder Woman handles things. Like, she's not like, get away from me. She's really a kind of open person who, he's a welcoming person. She's somebody who's usually quite approachable, right? But forget about that. There was this guy who worked at the White House in Wonder Woman 1984, who comes up to her and he tries to speak to her earlier on in the movie, and she's just like, leave me alone, I don't want to talk to you, right? And she just walks off. And then later she sees him at the White House, and she starts, because she wants to get into, the Oval Office, or that Oval Office area. She starts kind of flirting with him, almost like going, oh yeah, now I really want to see, can you take me around? And and being all kind of feminine and in that way, like to try and appease him or whatever. And I hated that, because I was like, that you've destroyed the kind of foundation of what you built in the first place, which is Wonder Woman never will use her sexuality to try and get ahead, right? Like, she'll fight her way in, she'll talk her way in, she'll do whatever she has to get where she wants to go, but she'll never use like that specific thing. But I don't know what you think about that, just out of interest. I'm curious. Did you notice that, or did it just like
that was one that I admit it kind of slipped by me, because like for me, it's, I don't see her as a totally pure icon, because I know her origins, and I had gotten into this discussion a number of times with people on Twitter who are like, "Oh, they turned her into a feminist icon." She's always been a feminist icon. That was her origin story, like
Right,
her
exactly.
real origin.
Mm, mm. And yeah, like exactly that was what the creator bloody William Moulton
Mm-hmm.
Marston like made her to be. She was always meant to be like a feminist character.
She was based off of
Um,
dominatrix, so yeah.
yeah. So I like the fact that they played that into the 2017 Wonder Woman. I know that a lot of people, you know, as soon as the word feminist is kind of raised, like they get like,
It's
you
gotten a
know,
really
kind of
ugly word, a really ugly meaning.
yeah, like nowadays, right? Like it isn't thought of as it used to be thought of, and as it should be thought of, which is like, you know, the fight for female equality.
Yeah,
Um,
you get two different kinds of feminists nowadays. You get the old school feminists that are more into the fighting for equality, to be recognized and have a heard voice
mhm.
or an equal voice, versus the weirdos you see on TikTok and all of that, that have pointy ears and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think the film, the Wonder Woman 2017 film, another good thing about it is it more approached like its feminist themes through the kind of old school feminism, right? It wasn't like this kind of modern feminism, which can, you know, I don't have a massive problem with it. Like I know a lot of people do. I don't. I just worry sometimes about um I don't really want to go into this, but like I worry sometimes about like, you know, like the impacts of things like Me Too, right? Like on due
Yes.
process and stuff like that. Like that's where it bothers me. But you know, whatever anyone else wants to have a, you know, their opinion, whether they hate men, like men, whatever they feel about men, I don't care as long it's your opinion and you don't do anything to me with it, right? You have the right to feel however you want about whatever you want, but I do like that this film was welcoming to everyone. It was welcoming to men, it was welcoming to women. It didn't like try and, you know, it didn't try and say, yeah, you know, this film is like, this is for women to watch, right? Like this is something, you know, and I think that was really good about it. But yeah, going back to the what we were talking about, which was that she is like this extremely feminine character, but in a different way than, you know, like femme fatales or like the kind of more boyish or mannish kind of heroes.
Mhm.
I think they did really. I think they succeeded better than pretty much any film I've seen of doing that in that is an action movie.
Okay.
So I love that about it. So anything you want to tell me, or like have I prompted any kind of thoughts on like what you
I'm trying to think. I mean, I loved just the whole thing. You mentioned the dressing scene. I that was absolutely fun, of her trying to figure out how am I going to fight in this.
right.
That was absolutely delightful. The
Right,
just
and
all of
that
it.
was some of the subtle feminism in the film, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, she's saying like women can be fighters, right? Like they can be, you know,
How do
and
you fight in this?
yeah, exactly. It wasn't something like banging you over the head with it. It was just like kind of subtly kind of weaved in there.
Mhm.
What out of interest, what do you think about Wonder Woman wearing high heels?
Not a fan.
I'm not a fan either. I don't know why they do that in this movie. She's a warrior. Why would she wear high heels in a fight? I'm just like,
I understand why they do it with some of the movies. I mean, she does have to stand up next to Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, both of which are gigantic human beings.
mhm,
So you got that aspect in that. That's the same reason why Harley Quinn had high heels in Suicide Squad, because
mm,
she had to be in the same frame as Will Smith.
right.
They
I
weren't
get it.
originally planning on putting her in high heels, but you know, she's short and he's a tall human being.
Yeah, I get it. I get it, but it just like it just I just think like why would a warrior do that? Why, like, and again it's that thing of high heels are often used to kind of accentuate sexuality in
Mhm.
women. And I'm like, again, that's not something, that's one of the things I always loved about the Wonder Woman character is like, she's one of the most beautiful women on earth. She recognizes she's beautiful in some ways, but she doesn't see it from an objectifying point of view of like a male gaze. She just,
Yeah.
she knows like, okay, I look good. The rest of the Amazons look good. So she's completely unaware of, and naive, especially when she first comes into the world, of her impact, of the impact that her kind of looks have on men. And she's not trying to play up her looks. I don't think she's, to me, she's not a character that would be like wearing loads of makeup or, like doing any of that kind of stuff. She just is, or do you know what I mean? Like
Well, I know
those
exactly
kind of
what you mean. Yeah.
those kind of things are not things that she'd necessarily do. And I think they pretty much did that in the Linda Carter series, right? Like she was pretty much like that. But for these films, they've kind of made her a bit more glamorous and a bit more fashion conscious and stuff like that, which is fine.
Thanks, Kat. And that was a definite nod to the 2009, because you made me think of a scene where he's desperately, as soon as they got to London, he's desperately trying to keep her covered up. And for her, she doesn't understand it because this is how the women dress where she is. But in like 1910 London, that no, you don't even dress like that in your own home. So that's just a nod right back to the 2009 animated movie, where even Steve Trevor in that point is going, yeah, let's go get some clothing onto you that's not going to get me charged for solicitation. She's like, what's wrong with what I'm wearing?
Right, exactly. So she has no idea of the impact of this, and that's why, yeah, it's another thing I love about the character. So how many times have I watched Thor 1 twice? Once in the cinema and once recently to prepare for our MCU versus DCU debate. I
Honestly,
didn't
I don't
like
think I
it.
could put a number to it.
Have you watched it many times? Thor?
Many times.
Yeah, so you like it a lot.
I was very excited for Thor. Well, I mean, one, with my family being that background, so there was already that there. Seeing the Bifrost Bridge in 3D was just that was beautiful. Yeah. And that's actually one of the things. Like if they ever open up the theaters again and say that they're going to put that up on IMAX, shoot, I am there.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Thor, like the whole Thor series, but yeah, I can understand why you like it. They should definitely make a Wonder Woman spin-off show. I think so as well. I want an animated series of Wonder Woman already. Like I really do. I think that way they can flesh out her world and they can create some more villains for her organically. And I just think that would do a lot for, making it easier for them to make Wonder Woman films in future as well. Because to be quite fair, when I went to research Wonder Woman comics, I found that there's only a few great runs of Wonder Woman or a few great graphic novels. There's not as many, like Superman and Batman have so many in comparison to Wonder Woman. And she's part of that holy trinity. And she should be on an equal footing, in my opinion. She should have as many great villains. She should have a city. I'd like her to have a city. I'd like her to have a stable job, like Batman's a billionaire. Superman's, a journalist. I would like Wonder Woman to have that. I personally think she should absolutely be a diplomat, and I'd like to see her become that in the DCEU.
Mm.
It was one of the only things in Zack Snyder's plan for the Justice League that I actually liked, was that he finally made her a diplomat by the end of it.
Yeah.
But it was right at the end, so you wouldn't have even seen it, like, you know, her doing that on a daily basis. But I think that job makes so much more sense to her, like as an emissary of Themyscira. Like, the world knows about Themyscira. She's got like Themyscira House, where, you know, it's the basically the embassy, and she like stays there, and that's where, you know, all of that stuff makes more sense to me of like, you know, what Wonder Woman would be doing rather than working in a museum. It's like, what's she going to do in a museum? Like, how's she going to find out about things in the world?
She's older than some of the stuff in the museum.
Yeah, no, but doesn't that there are things like they've made in the film series that I'm just like, why change it? You know, like from the comics, just make her, you know. And to be fair to them, they've had her do all sorts of things in the comics. It's so stupid. You know, they had her working at a fast food place at one point in the comics, which was hilarious. But yeah, like she's worked in a boutique, a clothes boutique. It's like stupid people who who do runs on her, that they don't get the character and they get her doing all these silly things. But the best runs of Wonder Woman, which I'm going to talk about. You can talk about the best episodes of Linda Carter's thing, and I'll talk about the comic. But the best runs of Wonder Woman have her as a diplomat, I think, and it makes just much more sense. Yet the stories just seem much more organic when you do that. All right, let's talk about, before we go on to like Wonder Woman in general, let's talk about her the best scenes in the film, right? Your favorite scenes. Now I know there's going to be one that's going to obviously come up.
Yeah, No Man's Land is everybody's favorite scene, which I'm very happy that they did include that one. One of the scenes actually will probably seem ridiculously silly to most people, but it's when she actually got her taste of ice cream, and for me, that's one of those nods, throwbacks that it's a fan nod. It's an Easter egg.
Yeah, and
I was looking forward to that, and would have been nicer if they played it up just a little bit more, but it was. I was very happy to see that.
Yeah. I was as well. Does that go back to the Linda Carter show, or is it just from the animated
trying
film?
To remember, I'm not sure if they had that in the Linda Carter show. It's been a while since I've watched it, so
yeah. I remembered it from the Justice League. It was Jeff Johns' run of Justice League, where like in her origin she like ate the ice cream, and then they did it in the animated film Justice League War. But I always thought that was something that I'd read somewhere else. I just couldn't remember it. Like it was something that happened early on in her comics, where like one of the first things she does when she comes to man's world is she eats ice cream and she loves it.
The person that could tell us definitively actually just popped in the chat. Hey, Terrence.
Hey, how's it going? I'll tell you like some of my favorite scenes. I really like Samir in that movie. I thought he was a really fun side character of all those, you know, like the band of characters that you know, Steve Trevor and her picked up. I thought he was like the funnest character. He had such great charisma and such great line delivery. So I loved their little language battle where he's flirting with her and they're having a little language battle. And then, you know, he has a small arc. It's not a big, massive arc, but he does have somewhat of a small arc where he comes to believe in her and stuff. And he's one of the few of them who's saying maybe maybe it's true, maybe like Ares does exist and he has corrupted man. But I love when they have that discussion about racism in that movie.
Yeah.
Right. Like and she doesn't, she's reacting and she's emotionally engaging and she's sympathizing with him, but yet she doesn't quite understand because of where she's come from. And they don't have that concept of race or racism, in Themyscira. So she's just trying to like understand, and you can see that empathy and whatever. And it's great, like face acting by Gal Gadot in that. But again, him as well, where he just says, I wanted to be an actor, but I was the wrong race. And it's just a simple little bit that helps the movie. When I say like the movie has like some deeper moments, like some deeper emotional moments, yes. I think it's little stuff like that really helps it.
It touches on the heavy subjects, but it does it with a gentle hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastically put. Really well done in the way you put that. So yeah, no, I think because I've had this discussion with people before, and it's like I think people think when I say like like this film has a deeper meaning to it, or it's deeper than a lot of superhero movies, that I'm saying it's like this really like philosophically kind of interesting, thought-provoking movie. And I don't really mean that. I just mean that if you read it on the surface, if you just completely do a surface reading of this movie, then yeah, it's just a kind of plain superhero origin movie, right? Yeah, there's nothing particularly special in it. What's special about this movie is those little moments, those little tiny things, that little arc that she goes through, how she comes to restore her faith in humanity when she's disillusioned by the first things she encounters when she comes to man's world, right? And she's disillusioned in a way, even by the group, the little band of people that they've got together. But it's her like seeing Charlie's PTSD, but seeing that he's still brave enough to, even though he has this PTSD, to carry on with the mission and want to go with them. It's her finding out about the Native Americans and what happened to them. And, seeing that nonetheless, they're fighting side by side with the oppressors, their oppressors or whatever. It's her seeing, Samir, and that he's this talented guy who wants to be an actor, but, he can't because of his color. So he's forced to do other things, that are more on the, so I love that aspect of the movie the most. That for me is the most interesting. Like, this movie doesn't have the greatest, like, I wish it had better action. I do wish it had better action. I do like the action in it, but I think it could have just been a little bit more, there could have been a little bit more to it. But those are the things, that I think, and I can't think of that many superhero movies that do that. Where they kind of explore those little moments and little things with the gentle touch that you said, but still kind of, but still explore them at the same time.
Just thinking, I'm definitely right on that one, because it's a hard path to walk of doing how they did it, like in that movie, of these really heavy topics like racism, like feminism, and all of that, and to do that in a way that does give you that moment to think, if you catch it. But it's again not like that Bull in a China Shop, where they did go wrong with they did go wrong with that in the other one.
Yeah. And
A lot of movies
in
like
stuff
that.
like Captain Marvel, right, where they try and do explore these kind of things, and it's just so heavy-handed and it's so on the surface, and it's so like, oh, you know, we're trying to, look how empowered this woman is. Look how empowered she makes this little girl, and it's just like, oh, God. They did the same in Wonder Woman 1984, and it was just
Yeah.
annoying. When they do it that heavy-handed, it's annoying. But then when they don't do it heavy-handed enough, certain people don't notice it, right? So it's a kind of double-edged sword. I'll say one more scene that I really loved from it, that I think was, something again that I didn't really see in a lot of these, because this movie it balanced light and darkness really well.
Mhm.
That's what I think it does really excellently. Like, it's quite a dark movie in places, but it's still always kind of fun and upbeat and inspiring, and can get you, almost tearful. I really did almost kind of, I was moved to tears. I wanted to cry, like,
Yeah.
in some of these things. I guess I'm just too hardened for the tears to actually come out, but I was literally nearly, it was a
Very moving
really
scene.
emotional
Yep.
kind of thing. I went to see it about 4 times in the cinema because different people wanted to see it with me. And each person I went with had the same experience, and these were people who didn't necessarily were into superhero movies. At least 2 of them, in fact. I went with one woman who was like, she's doing a PhD in chemistry, and she's got no interest in superhero movies. I convinced her to come to this for some reason. I don't know why it was kind of like a, for want of a better word, it was kind of like a date or whatever. And so she came with me to this to the film, and I remember her talking to me about it before, like we went in, and was saying, "No, I'm not really like that interested in superhero movies, but whatever. I like films and stuff." And she literally, when Steve Trevor, when there was that explosion and he dies, she literally grabbed my hand and squeezed it, and I looked at her, and she was like literally like crying, and she afterwards she kind of like thanked me for taking her to the movie, because she was like, I didn't know I really wanted to watch that, but I really now realize that, like, it was so good to see a woman in that role.
Yeah.
And perhaps the reason I've never been interested in this stuff is because I've never like kind of identified with anyone in the lead kind of role in these movies. And I think she just had a lot of, and I understand it. It was like a lot of, how would you put it? Like, it's not just about identifying. I think she's just Wonder Woman as a character in this movie was incredibly likable.
I get it. From like grew up as a comic fan, and I understand why Wonder Woman is not as, what's what I'm looking for, as big as the other 2 members of what's referred to as the Trinity, and that is largely because it is comic books have always been more of a boys thing.
Yeah.
Like I was there in the 90s going into the comic book shops, literally getting the looks as was seen in The Big Bang Theory anytime Penny walked in there. And like, did you walk into the wrong place? Like, so I know that, like, even my daughter, she went to school with a Batman shirt on. And somebody told her that she can't be a Batman fan because she's a girl. This is something that happened like 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought we'd moved past that by now. Because everyone's fans of these MCU movies. Like, I see girls like who are huge fans of it, and
hey, my neighborhood's a little mini Wakanda, so yeah, I get it.
So yeah, so the scene I was talking about, but I actually got distracted because I was telling the story, was the scene where she saved the whole village, right?
Mhm.
And then they kill everyone in that village, and she walks into the town and sees that they're all dead from this new mustard gas.
Yeah.
And she's just horrified by the whole thing. And I absolutely loved that scene. It was just like, what a balls thing to do. What a ballsy way to add stakes to this otherwise quite fun, at times campy, film. Like, it gave it so much heart. It was like that scene in Superman 1,
Mhm.
where Lois dies, right?
Yeah.
And they immediately ruin it by having Superman turn back time. That would have been one of the greatest scenes in film in superhero film history, if they
Mhm.
had have just left Lois dead, or like he had have found a better way to finally restore her back to life. But like, anyway,
That's topic for another day.
when it happens in Superman 1, that is just like, whoa, Lois is dead. Like when you first see it, and like the scream he has, the guttural kind of scream he has, like that Christopher Reeves does, and it was a fantastic thing.
Mhm.
Um, um, and yeah, it reminded me of that. It was just like, that is ballsy to like put in such a like fun, light-hearted movie in so many ways, and then to see that, to really like drill down what the horrors of this war was.
And again, yeah, that's back to that, doing it with the gentle touch, and
Mm,
not as gentle as some of the other scenes, but
mm,
yeah, that was definitely one of those powerful moments that it showed you a lot of her character, like
mm.
who she really is in
Yeah,
that moment of, it's like the tooth, finding out about the tooth fairy. That's the
mm,
best way I can do the analogy is her seeing that is like a lot of us when we find out about what the tooth fairy actually is.
yeah.
And it was that moment for her to actually realize that it's not as simple as she saw things.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Um, So I mean, those are some like my favorite scenes, and I think that the major thing, like I'll finish off just like talking about like that I really kind of liked about the movie was, I compare it in a lot of ways. I don't think it's as good as Batman Begins. I think like the villains aren't quite as good as like say Batman Begins was. I think that. It doesn't quite get like the structure of Batman Begins is just a really satisfying kind of, from beginning to end, like the way it's structured
Mhm.
is kind of interesting, and the way it tells the journey of like Bruce Wayne becoming the Batman, I think it's just a little bit more sophisticated than Wonder Woman. But I do see Wonder Woman as an heir to that movie, like
Mhm.
and Shazam, funnily enough. And the reason is because it has a theme that, like in the same way that Batman Begins has fear as its theme, Wonder Woman's theme is essentially whether humanity is worth, you know, not just worth saving, but worth living for, worth being a hero for,
Mhm.
right? So everyone in that story kind of reflects that, that kind of question, whether it's Steve Trevor, or Ares, or Ludendorff, and Ludendorff more than Dr. Poison, but them as a couple, right?
Yep.
They all reflect that same kind of theme of, in the end, is it the question being whether it's worth being a hero, or if humanity are too far gone, too possessed by their destructive impulses to even bother trying to do anything about it, right?
Mhm.
And that that whole kind of thing, of her learning why these individuals, like why her little group, her little band of friends who are helping her out in the war, why they are these kind of shady characters, why they've become that, and that ultimately underneath that they all want to do good, so that humanity is complicated. Yes, we are shady, we are bad, we do have all these destructive impulses, but at the same time, we're so much more. And it leads so beautifully up to that, like in a kind of circular way, to that moment where Ares confronts her. And Ares is not the greatest villain at all. But philosophically speaking, he's the perfect villain for her, because what he's saying about humanity and why she should turn against humanity and help him, that kind of almost temptation of Christ moment, is the perfect counterbalance to what Wonder Woman ultimately stands for in the comics, and in this particular story. And it allows her to like give voice to it in an absolutely most uncynical way, and just say, I believe in love. And I know a lot of people rolled their eyes at that moment, but a lot of people also who are lovers of love and believe in, like, naively, that thing, in a better world, were like, yes, like I was one of those people. I absolutely loved that line. It's corny as shit, but it's Wonder Woman, right? Like, that's what she stands for in the comics, and they had the balls to actually have her do that in the movie.
It would be just the same as Superman, talking about hope, because
right,
that's what he represents.
right. So yeah, so that theme played out in the movie, and it kind of culminated in her saying all those things, and I thought that was wonderful. Obviously, pun intended.
Yeah.
So those were the things those are the main things I loved about the movie. I mean, it's one of those movies, funnily enough, I don't want to watch too many times, because I want to, like, I watched it 4 times in cinemas, and then I probably watched it a couple more times at home, and I watched it at Christmas. But I'm trying to save it up, because I always want to watch that movie and be able to feel the emotions with it. And I think if you watch it too many times and you know what's happening, it kind of takes away the emotional aspect of the movie. So I like to save it up, but I'll end up watching it anyway because I like it so much. But yeah. So let me ask you just about, like, before, because before we kind of wrap it up, like, about other types of media that you've liked of Wonder Woman. And you've talked about the Linda Carter show. I think you mentioned some of the animated things. Like, what's the most badass moment or badass thing that you've seen Wonder Woman do, and like what other kind of media do you like of Wonder Woman?
One of my favorite ones is definitely from the 2009 movie, where and it's a complete side story. It's one of those little, like, tossed in just for the moment, but she's showing the little girl how to hold a sword properly with this stick, because she's playing swords with her brother.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, this, you hold it like this, and this right there, that's the kill move. And I'm like, God, I love that.
And Steve's like, yeah, great. You showed her how to disembowel her playmates. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I love that movie, by the way. I mean, I prefer Wonder Woman 2017, but I wish my perfect Wonder Woman movie is a blend between those two, actually. You know, I didn't like that. There's a couple of things I didn't like. Like, I didn't like that she's Zeus's daughter.
Yeah.
And I did not like that. What was the other thing I was just about to say from that was in the? I've completely forgotten now. I've lost my thread of thought. But there's something else in that. Oh, the trial. I don't like that they didn't put the trial in. Right? Like, I don't like that she just sneaked off the island. I would have liked to see that. I know it didn't kind of hang together because the Amazons had already trained her to be the greatest warrior or whatever, but maybe they shouldn't have done that. Maybe it should have just been done in secret by Antiope, and they could have still had that thing where, you know, she has the trial and she hides her face or whatever, and, you know, her mother doesn't know it's her.
Yeah, that is.
I think that's so important.
It is an important part of her story that was sadly left out, and it shouldn't have been.
So that there was elements like that. I get why they did both things. I get why they did the Zeus thing, and it didn't bother me that much. But I'm hoping maybe when they reboot Wonder Woman one day, that they actually do the classical origin. You know, like it was, for the most part, it was the classical origin, but there were just like these little elements that they left.
I like that they did toss in both of, or at least two of the original, her original origin stories, where they did actually do it was the story her mother told her that she made her out of mud, and I love that they added that fact in.
Yeah, that was a nice little Easter egg kind of touch to it. Yeah. So to me, if they had have made Ares a bit more of a villain as well, I think that was a kind of wasted opportunity. I think he should have been weaved in a lot more into the film, like kind of maybe drop Ludendorff or make it like he, you know, I don't know. They could have done it in a different way, like, because the reveal was really obvious. I knew that guy was Ares from the jump.
I didn't.
You know, didn't you?
I didn't.
Oh,
I didn't.
wow.
I didn't catch it on the first watch.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, going back, yes, it is definitely more obvious. But I thought David Thewlis did a beautiful Ares. And it was, I know for a lot of people that would be the biggest downfall of the movie, was he's not what you would picture for the God of War. You would picture somebody that looks more like Batista, or, you know, or Chris Hemsworth, that kind of stuff. And yes, he is.
I like the more sophisticated. Like, I would have cast, like, you know, do you watch Game of Thrones?
No, but I am familiar with a lot of the actors.
Oh, right. The Christopher Waldo, the guy who plays Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer.
Yeah.
I'd take a guy more like him. I think, for me, I like the more. I don't like when Ares is her brother either, because I like when he's a little bit like, he's kind of depicted in certain of the comics a little bit like Hannibal Lecter, right? Yeah. He's like this sophisticated kind of, you know, well kind of manner, like he speaks, you know, very kind of, you know, poshly and well spoken and intelligently, but he's beastly beneath. Like, he's a monster beneath that. right? And I really
Again,
like that version of Ares. I think it's a good like counterbalance to Wonder Woman.
and that is a bit more of what we saw. In the beastly thing is for me is that side funny because it was David Thewlis
Mm,
with him playing Remus Lupin in the Harry Potter franchise. So
mm.
you did have that cute little side beastly nod there, which is
My
one of
thing
those
is,
connections only my brain would make.
yeah, my thing was I didn't think his performance was that bad.
Mhm.
I thought his performance was fine. It's just they didn't take his stupid mustache off when he went in the helmet.
Yeah, they didn't. They needed somebody for more of a. This is definitely the villain. This is the bad guy that you need to focus on,
Mm,
especially to make that swap,
mm.
to make it more obvious,
Yeah. And I
or
think they needed
more
to
of a
give Dr.
surprise.
Poison more to do. I would have
Yes.
just dropped Ludendorff, to be honest. I would have focused more on Dr. Poison and less on Ludendorff. Ludendorff could have been there, but like have Dr. Poison manipulating him or something.
Yeah, they
I
they
wanted
they needed yeah they needed to play up Doctor Poison more, and that would have
just
made
mhm,
that would have been a big difference.
yeah. Because I think she was the more interesting, visually she was interesting. I think the actress
Mhm.
is actually really, really good. I've seen her in a couple of Spanish films. She's a fantastic actress. Um, she could have done really, really well in that role, and it was just like it was a thankless role in the end. And then yeah, like Ares, it's Ares for God's sake. This is to me, Cheetah
Mhm.
will never be Wonder Woman's arch nemesis. I just don't see it.
Uh,
She's like for me, Killer Croc. What Killer Croc is to Batman. I don't see why they keep trying to force this thing between. I was going to mention this. It's about like these. One of the things I love about DC movie or DC comics in general is that they have gimmick villains,
mhm,
right? So it's a villain with like a specific gimmick, like the Joker is like chaos, the Riddler is like puzzles and riddles.
mhm.
You have someone like Brainiac who is like, he's the kind of it's basically like essentially he always wants to uh, uh, what am I trying to say? He wants all knowledge in the universe, basically, and to
Yeah.
delete everything once he's gained that knowledge. So when you have characters like that, they write their own stories. So even Ares, right? Even though he was a weak villain, just in virtue of having Wonder Woman versus Ares, the story wrote itself.
Mhm.
You didn't really need, any kind of exterior things. It's very simple. Ares wants to create war. He wants to, he gains power from it, or he wants to wipe out humanity, or whatever the reason he wants to, put the world at war. That kind of story is immediately, it makes sense. It goes, Wonder Woman stands for peace, love. She's versing Ares, right? So that there's an immediate relationship there. Um, Whereas Cheetah, it's like, what does she want to do? What does she want to achieve?
Yeah, they
Um,
they did not play that well because there has always been that rivalry between Diana and Barbara. I mean,
yeah,
yes, they started off as friends, and in her actual story, um, Barbara actually really starts going after because she was Wonder Woman. Diana was supposed to be her backup because
mm,
Cheetah gets her powers by going to this temple
yeah, the
in Africa.
African,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think they should have gone with that.
Yes. And Diana was supposed to save her, and she didn't. And that there's always that hurt feeling about
Mm.
that.
And there is kind of an opposition between them in the sense that Wonder Woman is blessed by her powers, whereas Cheetah is cursed by her powers. right? So that kind of something that makes an organic kind of rivalry between them. But I'll say that that Cheetah's a great villain. She's just not a great main villain. Yes. Or arch nemesis. Ares to me is Wonder Woman's natural arch nemesis. I've never read an Ares versus Wonder Woman story that hasn't been somewhat good or interesting, because the chemistry is just there. Whereas I've read a lot of bad Wonder Woman versus Cheetah stories, whereas but I've read a lot of good ones as well. You know, where it's where people handle it well. I feel the same with Lex Luthor and Superman to a lesser degree, because Lex Luthor does have a little bit of a gimmick, but the story doesn't necessarily write itself with Lex Luthor versus Superman. You really have to think about, how is this genius, as clever as he is, going to challenge somebody who can fly at light speed and, you know, pick up mountains and laser eye anyone? Whereas when you have Superman versus Brainiac, that organically makes sense. Yes. You know, you've got like somebody at the same level, except he's like hyper intelligent. That kind of usually plays out a little bit better. But people do such a good job with Lex Luthor anyway. When they write him, that it doesn't. They, you know, usually they find a good way of telling Lex Luthor stories.
Well, Superman and Lex is kind of like that David and Goliath story, just from a different perspective.
Yeah. Oh, I love Lex Luthor though. Lex Luthor is one of my favorite DC villains. Actually, interesting. Who are your favorite DC villains?
Riddler actually is one of my favorite Batman villains. Catwoman, I don't count her as a villain. I don't count her as a hero, but obviously absolutely love her. I did actually grow to really like Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Because of who she is and her backstory with her being hyper intelligent. Same with Poison Ivy. And
agreed. Rosenbaum is a goat. Best Lex Luthor ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Go on, sorry.
Poison Ivy, again, being a scientist in femme fatale. I love that. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just about to say, although Superman and the Adventures of Lois and Clark, is it the Adventures of Lois and Clark? Right. The Lex Luthor in that was pretty dope as well. He was a really good Lex Luthor. But Michael Rosenbaum, he's a forgotten Lex Luthor, but if you go back to that series, he was really good. But Michael Rosenbaum was excellent as well. So they're my two favorite. Are you trying to troll me right now? Because I like Jesse Eisenberg, but everyone hates him. Yeah, I think the Riddler is one of mine as well. Like, he's really underrated. I've never liked. This is the thing. I don't like legacy characters so much. So whether it's Robin or Supergirl or Harley Quinn, I'm always like, dude, I just want to see the Joker. I just want to see Batman. I just want to see Superman. I don't want to see their little teen buddies or you know, anything like that. So or their girlfriends or whatever the hell it is. But I do like the Harley Quinn TV show a lot. And it's got Dr. Psycho in it. I couldn't believe they had Dr. Psycho in it. That was so cool. He doesn't get enough love in the Wonder Woman comics. So my favorite Wonder Woman villains are Ares, Dr. Psycho. I really wish they'd do more with Dr. Poison, because again, it's a great gimmick villain. You know, the stories can kind of write themselves. I mean, she wants to poison people, or she wants to set off some kind of chemical weapon in a city or something like that. So it's very easy to figure out what to do with Dr. Poison. So who else do I? One of the most underrated Wonder Woman villains is Alcyon. I think she is Wonder Woman's Lex Luthor. I don't know if you've ever read it, but if you haven't, read Wonder Woman, The Circle by great Gail Simone. And it's got one of the best Wonder Woman villains who they never use, and I want to see in a film one day. But yeah.
I think they touched on her with the DC Superhero Girls show.
Alcyon?
Yeah.
No way.
I'm pretty sure.
You're kidding me. I'll go. I need to see that if that is true.
I watch that with my daughter a lot because she's a budding fan, obviously. And actually, she has watched the Wonder Woman 2017 movie. She loved that.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great.
Oh, your daughter liked it.
She did.
Wow. Okay. So what, you went together to the cinemas and
No. No. When I went to go see it, yeah, that was a date. But she watched it with me later on because I will watch stuff beforehand to make sure it's safe. You know.
Oh, okay, right. I got you. How old is she? You said
she's 8.
Oh, she's 8 years old.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So her being the age she is, and finally I've gotten to watch it. It was being about the same age I was when I got introduced to. So it was beautiful. It was a great moment for me.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Wonder Woman does have good villains, but they don't. But she doesn't have enough of them. They don't. The writing on Wonder Woman comics has been inconsistent, to say the least. Really, really inconsistent, and it's unfortunate because I really think she has the potential to be as great a character as Superman and Batman. And she is. I mean, she is already. I'm not saying she isn't, but the problem is she isn't. It's all down to if you write her, to be that. Do you know what I mean? It's all the ingredients are already there, but they haven't written her to be that. And Wonder Woman 1984, unfortunately, I'm so sorry, dear, doesn't help the cause. Yeah, she needs an animated series. That will really help her because I think that helped Batman and Superman a lot. Like some of the characters, even Harley Quinn was created in the Batman animated series, right?
Yeah.
She wasn't a comic character before, so it just fleshes out their universe when they do like these animated series of these characters. This is Alcyon, by the way. So I don't know if she was in the. I couldn't find her in the DC superhero girls thing. But yeah, I was gonna finish by saying my most badass moment that I've seen Wonder Woman of Wonder Woman, and then you could tell me, like, I don't know, your favorite episode of the Linda Carter show, which I will watch, or a badass moment.
I'm trying to think. I can't. I'm not sure if I could give you an actual from, because that again, it's like going back and watching the Adam West series. There is a ton of camp because that's what it was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also why I've talked about this with the guys from the Chaos Central crew on Zone Them. This is why it was such a jarring with Michael Keaton, because the only other version we had seen before was Adam West. So, Tim Burton's Batman to the Adam West TV series, that was like basically putting Saw up there, which is why so many parents were so against it.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's mild by today's standards, I get that, but
I didn't get that. I like as a kid, I wasn't in the slightest bit scared of anything that happened. I don't know what rosy rainbow neighborhoods that
Hmm.
these kids came from that they were scared. I guess because my mother just didn't care about me watching like horror movies and stupid things when I was like a kid. So that didn't scare me at all. I was just like, oh, okay. It's a
No, I'm
penguin
with you
guy.
there.
I
I
I loved
I had
it.
I had older sisters. One of them looked like I come downstairs and she's like, "Oh, come on over, come watch this movie with me. There's a little girl just your age in it." Yeah, that little girl was Carol Ann.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, the one that frightened me the most when I was a kid, because I was watching all these horror movies, but then they sat me down to watch The Omen one
Oh,
day, and
jeez.
I was horrified out of my mind like during that movie. But I love it till this day. Um, but yeah, so what were we talking about? The most badass moment. Have you ever, again, a comic? If you guys have never read any Wonder Woman, read Wonder Woman: Eyes of the Gorgon. Um, Spoilers, by the way. If you don't want spoilers, you should turn away now. But like this in this one, she fights Medusa and the Gorgon sisters,
Mhm.
and I really want them to do a film of this because it is the most badass thing. And I will say this straight up. This is what she does in this particular comic is simply the most badass thing I have ever seen a superhero do. Period. There's nothing like it. So she fights Medusa, and it was Greg Rucka's run, and this Wonder Woman was a diplomat, but she was also very tactical as a warrior. She wasn't just, like, oh, I'm powerful, like I'm super strong and whatever, but she was a tactical warrior. She'd been trained to be tactical by the Amazons. So she comes in blindfolded and like with a helmet on, um, to fight Medusa. And she's trained so well that she can, she's able to figure out her way to be able to, uh, you know, uh, uh, to fight while not being able to see. Essentially, she can use her instincts and whatever. But essentially, Medusa's overpowering her eventually, and she takes the mask off of her or the helmet off of her. She has a blindfold underneath, and then Medusa takes the blindfold off, and Wonder Woman has to almost like fight her like with her back turned to her. And eventually Wonder Woman realizes the only way she's going to beat her is by blinding herself. So she literally blinds her eyes, like pours some, it's like the acid from Medusa's snake into her eyes and blinds herself so as to defeat Medusa. And it's all to save the city from, like, because Medusa is going to turn the whole city to stone, and it's freaking amazing. You have to read the story though. I don't know if I did it justice. But that's her doing it there, blinding her eyes. I was just like, wow. I remember reading that and just being like, I had to keep on reading and find out what happened. And this is a perfect story to adapt. They could have used this as the second movie, and it would have been the Dark Knight of Wonder Woman movies.
Trying to find that one, and I'll figure it out.
Oh, which one? The Eyes of the Gorgon or the?
No, they in one of the DC superhero girls, they had one of her more compelling villains, and might be wrong that it was Alkyong, but I'll find it.
I watch that sometimes. I find it really fun.
It was one. I know it was one of the movies and not the TV series.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Wonder Woman in the Haikita kicking Batman's ass, bro. Oh yeah, that was good. That was good. That's another film they should have done, dude. That would have been my trilogy. I would have done Wonder Woman, like the first 2017, then done Eyes of the Gorgon, and then finished off with Wonder Woman Haikita, since they like putting Batman in everything anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just get her to face Batman like in a kind of ideological battle. Do you know the story of the Hikatea, pardon me. It's
not off the top of my head.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's so good. All right, I'll tell you this without a spoiler. The story is about Batman is chasing some girl who's murdered a bunch of like a group of men, right? Like and so he's after her, like like to bring her to justice. But she comes to Wonder Woman and she supplicates herself to Wonder Woman using a kind of ancient Greek ritual where Wonder Woman will look after her and she'll just be like a ward to Wonder Woman, like if Wonder Woman will accept it. And Wonder Woman accepts her even though she knows that she's murdered these people. And so Batman comes after her while Wonder Woman has her under her protection, basically. And then you find out what, Wonder Woman understands some things about her. She can see some things about her, which is why she decides to protect her, even though she's murdered people. It's fantastic. I'm telling you, like, Wonder Woman has some of the most underrated graphic novels of all time. She's also got some of the most terrible comics of all time, but like some of them are hardcore, really good, and like in a modern way, and they have some really good ideas, interesting ideas in them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few. So tell me about your favorite. Let's talk about favorite episodes of Wonder Woman from Linda Carter, or whatever you want to talk about, whether it's from a TV show or cartoon, or some of your favorites.
It would definitely have to be Justice League, the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
God. So many good stuff from there. I mean,
I loved her in that.
They did a lot of characters really well there.
Yeah, they did. I was a big fan of the Question from that. I still want a Question film.
Yeah. God, I'm trying to remember the name of the one film alone that was where they had to go in hiding.
What was your favorite episode of that then?
Sadly, the one that comes to mind as my favorite is not a Wonder Woman centric one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was more of the Green Lantern Shi'ara romance storyline.
Oh, okay. I like that, but like Wonder Woman does something really badass in that episode as well. That was one of the coolest things. She basically is the one that gets them to escape from the prisons when they're in prison. Like she takes a knife in her teeth. I don't remember, but she does something like really badass. She has like a knife in her teeth and then throws it like it's crazy. But like she did so. I loved her in that show. The only thing that pissed me off was when Aquaman beat her. I was like, Aquaman does not beat Wonder Woman. I don't give a shit like what world it is. Aquaman does not beat Wonder Woman. They did it again in the recent animated film, which I was fine with, but I'm like, no. It's like to me, the Trinity beat every Justice League member.
I'm trying to remember which one it was.
That's why they're the leaders.
But there was one where there was a battle dome, and a lot of the girls, the female heroes, were
fighting each other in like a fight club.
Yeah, and they had like something in their ear that
Mm,
overrode them, and they
mm.
brought Wonder Woman up as the final boss.
And she kicked their asses.
Oh,
It was amazing.
that that yeah, that's definitely one of the most badass because that was her unleashed.
I'll tell you, the most badass thing she did in the animated films was I loved it because the DC Trinity are my favorite superheroes: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, favorite superheroes of all time, and they always will be. Best thing was Batman and Superman Apocalypse.
Mhm.
And they go to Apocalypse and they roll up on the what it's called Apocalypse, right? The
Mhm.
planet. Like they roll up on the planet like a gang of gangsters, and she essentially um she like basically takes on this massive tank and she just lifts the head of the tank up and like throws. I love that whole fight sequence and her versus the Furies as well.
Yes.
It's got to be it's going to be up there as one of the best. She has so many good moments in those animated movies where it's just like she's just beating the shit out of people, and I love it.
That was the point I was making in the chat the other day. I mean, if you want to talk DC Marvel, you got to talk DCE, the animated universe.
Versus the MCU. Yeah,
That's where they got the characters.
well,
Brilliant.
that's an easy one. That's an easy win for DC. I don't.
Yes.
The only thing that makes that an L or a loss for DC is that they didn't make those into films.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. They should
I mean,
do that one day. If
every
they were
DC fan has said the same thing over and over again. Pay attention to what you're doing in the animated universe. Put that on the live screen.
basically, I honestly, the scripts just need a once over to make them more like real life. You know, because some of the dialogue is still a little bit cartoony.
Yeah.
So they just need a once over, and then just I'd love to see like Justice League, the New Frontier or something like that done in live action by like Spielberg or something, or a Spielberg type director, um, something
Well,
like that. But
the first one that was the birth of the Justice League, where they go against Brainiac. Yeah, do that one.
which one?
It was one of the very first
Oh,
ones from the um beginning
you're
of the
talking about
2000s. Yeah.
you're talking about the Justice League series,
The movie.
or
No, there
there
was
was
a
a
movie.
Justice League. Oh right, versus Brainiac. I thought I've seen a Superman versus Brainiac one, which is really good, but I don't know if I've seen that one, which surprises me because I think I've
No,
seen them all.
this was one of the very first ones.
Interesting. I'm gonna look it up.
See if I can pull it up right now. Justice League.
If you pull it up, you can share your screen with me and I'll show everyone. But yeah, it's just I honestly think they would be better off just uh you know dumping the shared universe and just doing really, really good adaptations of those movies. But mix up the characters, not just Batman and Superman. That's the only thing I would say. It's very Batman, Superman heavy. But if they mix up the characters a little bit more, then you've got the template there. Just don't. I don't like the new 52 stuff they did as much as when they were just adapting the comics, like adapting great comics to, the Flashpoint one is amazing.
I'm not watching the chat at the moment, so if somebody is dropping it in there, I do not see.
No. DC animated shows have always been far superior than anything Marvel did with their animations. Hi, Blue Arrow. Yeah. But we're saying the DCAU versus the MCU. I think it's easily the DCAU. I like them much, much more. Is Wonder Woman actually more powerful than Superman? No. But she's a little less powerful, but in the comics, like, you know, up until the New 52, essentially, she was a little less powerful, but like she could fight him because of her warrior skills. And it could go either way, essentially, because of that, because she's got like magical weapons as well. What's up, dude? Yeah, I mean, if you can't find it, I might leave it there. And say, everyone, please do me a favor, give me a high five, smash that like button. Obviously, if you come to this later, do subscribe for more content and comments. Love the comments. Tell me about your favorite Wonder Woman moments, favorite Wonder Woman comics. You know, and keep the conversation going. I usually do as much as possible, like respond to the comments. Did you find it?
Not at the moment. This might take me a bit. It might not have been Brainiac. It was definitely an outer worldly. It was an alien race, and that was why they went together. I'm trying to remember.
There was Justice League Crisis on Two Earths.
Before that.
Justice League Doom. I'm trying to think. Justice League New Frontier. I can't think of the one where they fought Apocalypse. I know that. Let's see, Justice League animated films. I know that they fought Brainiac in the DCAU series.
Yeah.
New Frontier, Gods and Monsters, Crisis on Two Earths. Yeah. And they fought the Atlanteans. I don't think they've ever fought Brainiac.
When was that? Secret Origins.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Secret Origins?
Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
October 2001. It was the premiere of Justice League on Cartoon Network. It was.
Can you share? Can you share your screen?
Let me look it.
I want to see this. What was it called? Justice League?
Secret Origins.
Let me see if I can find it. Oh, so it was it was
the premiere, but yeah, it was in 90 minutes.
Oh,
so it's often
it was
shown.
when they fought the Martians, right? Okay, yeah, I see what. So it was the first few episodes of the Justice League.
Yeah, it's often played in the full 90-minute run. So I guess that's why my brain is saying movie.
Yeah, that's kind of right, JG Shalin. Kind of. It depends on who writes them. That's essentially it. Like, there's not really a thing of whether Wonder Woman is more or less powerful, because it just depends on the writer, basically. But like, she's definitely usually seen as less powerful than Superman.
It's just like the whole who's faster, Flash or Superman debate. Like, it was one of my first DC videos that I talked about. And it really, that all comes down to who's the comic that it's going to be in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But Flash is faster. I mean, like,
Oh,
there's
great.
no, like, and that's the better story. I mean, he's the
I'm
fastest.
Team Flash when it comes to that. We've never seen Superman
Yeah.
actually turn back time.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, apart from in the movie, which didn't make sense.
Setting that movie aside.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you, Mama Bear, for joining me. It's been really enjoyable talking to you about Wonder Woman 2017, as well as other things. Do you want to tell them a bit about your channel? I think a lot of people who are subscribed to me are probably subscribed to you already, but
actually, there's a lot of names I'm not as familiar with here, but I do talk some comic book stuff, some pop culture. I do a lot of drawing as well. In fact, tomorrow I will be on with Machini 90, where we do a draw stream every Sunday.
Nice.
Because also an artist of the group.
Nice. Okay.
There's some crafting that I tend to do on the channel. I'm a bit of a ADD, I struggle. But I also drop some poetries because I've been told people enjoy listening to the sound of my voice. So you get busy talking.
Okay, well then I'm gonna leave it there, and guys, you know what to do. Subscribe, comment, give me a high five, smash that like button, and apart from that, I will see you on the flip side, and I love you 2000. Peace.
Later.